Hi there, guys. My name's Alex Mills from Sporting Chance. I'm joined by one of our therapists, Alison McLean, and today we're going to be talking to you about supporting yourself and others with regards to mental health. And hopefully, by the end of this session, we'll have made you feel more prepared, comfortable, and confident in terms of conversations around mental health and supporting individuals within your network. I'm now going to hand over to Alison to talk more about supporting you and others.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks for the introduction. I mean, just really to start off with, why are relationships important? I mean, humans are first and foremost social creatures, so we've evolved to survive and thrive in relationships. You know, we're completely dependent on nurture and care on our very survival from the minute we're born, and we need relationships in order to feel safe, to cooperate with others, to communicate. We have a language that we've developed as a species. And when we think about what happens when we don't have relationships, and when there's a breakdown, we often feel scared, we might feel anxious, we can feel isolated, and there frequently can be a lot of shame around feeling ostracized and feeling alone. But when we are supported, generally speaking, we feel open, we feel connected, we tend to feel curious and relaxed, engaged, motivated, joyful. And although this isn't the case for all of us and all of our relationships, generally speaking, we all have the capacity and need for this type of support. So having a good support network is really important to having and maintaining good mental health and well-being. And we all have our own support networks. As you can see here with Sarah Jane Perry, it can be really helpful to identify who is in your support network and work on strengthening and expanding these relationships and circles of support. If we have our support ourselves, we can then go on and support others. So we will find ourselves too in the support network of others. And if we want to develop our ability to support other people, one of the things we can develop and learn is how to pay attention to and be available. And one of the ways we do this is through listening. But listening is hard, right? I mean, unless we've been lucky enough to have a good role model, or we've had some sort of training, most of us are going to struggle with listening. We live in a culture where we are focused on and concerned with how we communicate, present to the world. We're taught to articulate ideas, present, argue, debate, create a certain appearance, and we're really sort of obsessed almost with trying to get ahead, demonstrate our knowledge, outcompete. So it's tricky to turn that around and be open and receptive. And often in conversations, we find ourselves getting distracted, planning what we're going to say, trying to be intelligent, witty, not really seeing the whole picture. And we might also be used to following instructions. So you might, for instance, when you're listening to your coach, be aware that you're listening out just for the relevant pieces of information for you and not really listening to what's really going on. Sporting Chance, we also know that there are particular barriers within the sporting environment and the environment of professional sport. It's a competitive environment, and that can really be at odds with open and relaxed communication. We know there's pressure, stress, performance expectations, and it's difficult to be vulnerable. And we may also be resistant or avoidant to listening to other people's difficulties. We might be worried about embarrassing ourselves or the other person, fear about talking about it will make it worse, fear of getting it wrong, and really fears about not knowing what to do when someone tells you something distressing. Will I be able to cope with that? What I really want you to take away from today is have the conversation, have the confidence to have the conversation. It's always better to go there for yourself and for the other if you can do that. So listening is a really important skill to develop so that we can have supportive conversations. And so there are some basic skills that we can develop to become better listeners. And there are just a few sort of simple, although maybe not so simple in practice, pointers for you to think about. The first is just really about being present and attentive. So being noticing changes in behavior, body language and mood, being aware of that in other people. and approaching others and asking them how they are, maybe noticing what you're seeing with them. And give time, space, and opportunity for the individual to share. We will have all experienced not being heard, and how difficult that is. Just so show that you are present and attentive. You can do this through eye contact. You can do this through micro gestures, nodding along. It really helps the other person to recognize that you're hearing them. Also mirror body language. You'll find yourself doing this anyway, but it helps the other person see a visual representation of their own emotional state. Ask open questions. Who, what, why, when? How did that make you feel? Be curious and clarifying. When you're interested, oh, I'm really interested in that. Can you tell me more? It helps the other person in turn be interested, be curious about their experience and make sense of it. And try not to give advice, at least immediately. Advice can be helpful at times, but we often have assumptions that can be unhelpful. So instead, try to reflect back what you're hearing, summarize what you've heard or paraphrase in your own words, and notice and pick up on feelings. I can hear that you're really upset about that. Oh, that's really exciting. You must be delighted. And again, it helps the person feel met and heard and make sense of their situation. You can tell them how you feel about the situation. Be authentic. What do you make sense of? How do you see this, this particular event? And ask them what they might need. And if you feel like you're getting it wrong, say so. Say that to the person. I'm really sorry. I'm not really sure what to do here. I'm not sure I'm really getting it. Be authentic in that way. It will help you, help the other, and it may lead to you saying, well, let's go and find someone else that can help you in the way you need. And all of this, we can often feel very anxious about people, talking to people in high distress, and that fear is understandable, but a lot of what we've talked about will be exactly the same if you're speaking to someone in a lot of emotional distress. But you might also not be told directly that somebody is in distress. So you really need to watch out for, observe and see, is what you're being told and what you're noticing, do they match? And ask about it. In particular, notice for feelings of hopelessness, despair, and sudden changes in mood and withdrawal. If you're concerned about suicide or self-harm, ask directly about it. And be specific. Ask about the plans, what they're thinking about doing and when. Ask them how long they've been feeling this way. And tell them that you want to keep them safe. If they are in immediate danger, call emergency services, police, 999, or the local crisis team. And we'll signpost you to this at the end of the video. But it's really important. You cannot get it wrong, and no one's ever been told off for making that call. It's always better to be safe than sorry. And you can also put a safety plan in place with the individual. What can they do right now to keep them safe? Where can they go? Who can they be with? What can they do? And really, if you have had a conversation which is distressing, you will need to then draw on your own support network. You'll need to offload, you'll need to make sense of the situation, you'll need to address your own distress. If you're not okay, you cannot be okay for other people. So it's vitally important to learn how to talk about your own vulnerability and receive the support that you need. If you can do that, then you'll increasingly be able to do it for other people. So start now. Who is in your support network that you can practice both listening and being vulnerable with? And Sporting Chance is in all of your networks. So if you feel like you need some extra support, we're here to help you. And just to quickly sum up, start with strengthening and expanding your own support network so that you can be steady for others. Practice your listening skills. They are skills, they need practice. Give space and time, reflect back what you're hearing, notice and identify feelings, and be curious and clarifying. Be yourself in conversations. Don't be afraid to be yourself. And notice distress. Get help and don't overthink it.
Thanks very much, Alison. And just a quick reminder of some points that Alison covered there on this screen in terms of signposting. If you're in the UK, that's the protocol in terms of contacting services for those that are in crisis if you are worried that they are in danger of harming themselves or others. And the Suicide Stop website there at the bottom for anyone watching this outside of the UK. And I appreciate on the PSA World Tour, there will be a lot of individuals watching this from outside of the UK. And finally, just a reminder, Sporting Chance, an hour number, please call that, not just if you're in crisis or you're worried about someone else in crisis. We've already covered quite a lot in previous sessions about the fact that mental health is a spectrum, it's a broad church, and actually you can engage in support around any emotional or mental health concern at an early point and go through less pain than you need. So I hope this session has been useful, and we're really looking forward to seeing you all soon.